Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. So today we're looking at a guy who is, honestly, the ultimate biblical outlier. We're talking about a man who completely defied that usual fate of human passion we see so often. His name is Caleb, and his story, which literally spans from his youth all the way into his twilight years, offers this incredible masterclass in what it means to wholeheartedly follow God. If you've ever felt your own dedication kind of slipping as life gets tough, you are absolutely going to want to hear this. Okay, let's dive right in. We're going to trace Caleb's life sequentially to uncover the secret of his enduring faith. We'll start with what it means to live a life of wholehearted following, then look at his youth, where he feared no giants. From there, we'll hit middle age and his wilderness endurance, right into his old age where he claims the mountain. Finally, we'll wrap up with the secret to building that faith and pressing toward the mark. So, Part 1, a life of wholehearted following. To really appreciate Caleb, we first need to acknowledge a pretty universal human problem. We usually start our youth with this immense idealism and fire, right? But as life progresses, our passion often just fades. Why does that happen? Our source material actually shared this really striking personal anecdote. The author was cleaning their house and found an old youth group photo. Over 30 passionate, joyful young people staring back at them. But looking at that photo 20 years later, the reality was sobering. Very few of them were still actively serving, and a lot of them had completely walked away from their faith. It really forces us to ask, how can we be the exception? How can we be the ones who actually finish strong? Moving into Section 2, Youth, and Fearing No Giants. Let's jump back to Caleb's youth, specifically when he was 40 years old. This is a massive turning point. According to the book of Numbers, chapter 13, 12 spies were sent out to scout the promised land of Canaan. But when they came back, 10 of those spies gave a terrifying report. They looked completely subjectively at their own perceived weaknesses. They saw these towering giants, the Anakim, and heavily fortified walls, and they basically said, "We're like grasshoppers compared to them." But Caleb? He looked at the exact same giants, the exact same walls, but he viewed them objectively through the lens of God's power. He silenced the panicked crowd, declaring they should go up immediately and take the land. He was completely confident in a guaranteed victory simply because God was with them. Which brings us to Section 3, Middle Age and Wilderness Endurance. But sadly, that massive crowd actually listened to the 10 fearful spies. And because of their unbelief, God handed down a severe judgment. And this launches Caleb into what has to be the heaviest psychological burden of his entire life. Think about this timeline. He starts out bold and full of faith at 40. And his reward? He has to spend the next 40 years wandering aimlessly in a barren desert. He didn't lack faith at all. We all know middle age is notoriously difficult, right? Our source points out that typically, this is when our ideals just kind of die. We get squeezed by family pressures, career stress, raising kids, caring for aging parents. It's a lot. But contrast that with Caleb's middle-age challenge. He is trapped in a literal desert because of someone else's sin. Yet throughout those entire 40 years, while the Israelites constantly complained against Moses and rebelled against God, there is no record of Caleb ever complaining. His external environment was incredibly frustrating, for sure, but he never let it corrupt his internal devotion. Let's move to Section 4, Old Age and Claiming the Mountain. So here's the climax of the whole narrative, found in Joshua chapter 14. The wilderness wandering is finally over. You'd think it's time for Caleb to just retire, put his feet up, right? Well, Caleb is exactly 85 years old now. He has survived the wilderness by God's grace for 45 years since that initial promise was made back in Numbers. And instead of quietly stepping down, he steps forward with this bold, almost audacious demand. Listen to exactly what he tells Joshua. He says, "I am still as strong today as the day Moses sent me out." And the craziest part? He doesn't ask for a nice, safe, comfortable valley to retire in. No way. He asks for Hebron. That is the very mountain region still inhabited by those massive giants and their fortified cities. Caleb's passion hadn't dimmed one single bit over half a century. He was ready to fight for the exact promise God had made to him all those decades ago. Section 5, The Secret to Building Faith. So what is the secret sauce here? How do we go from being idealistic youths to unwavering 85-year-olds demanding mountains? Well, Caleb's faith wasn't magic, and it definitely wasn't built in a day. It was forged over a lifetime. First, you've got to immerse yourself in God's word. The sources point out that Caleb actually witnessed God's miracles in Egypt. He saw the Red Sea part, and he listened to Moses' teachings. He intimately knew what God loved and hated. Second, you have to look past your immediate environment. Whether it was literal giants in Canaan or the endlessly frustrating reality of the wilderness, Caleb flat out refused to let his physical circumstances dictate his spiritual reality. And third,
trust entirely in God's promise. When he wanted Hebron, he anchored his entire life to the promise, not the problem.
Finally, Section 6, pressing toward the mark. To bring this whole thing full circle, our source beautifully connects Caleb's lifelong Old Testament journey to the Apostle Paul in the New Testament. Writing from a literal prison cell, facing his own severe, frustrating limitations, Paul perfectly echoes Caleb's spirit in Philippians chapter 3. He writes, "Forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead, I press on toward the goal to win the prize." To endure like Caleb, we have to intentionally lay aside our past burdens. Whether that's the heavy baggage of our past mistakes, our negative mindsets, or the bitter memory of wandering in our own wilderness, we cannot let the past anchor us down. We have to boldly let it go, fix our eyes entirely on the ultimate prize, and just press forward. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a lingering question. Take a hard look at your own life right now. Are you letting the pressures of your current season extinguish your fire? Whether you're in your idealistic youth, feeling the heavy, chaotic pressure of your middle years, or stepping into the twilight of your old age, what mountain is God calling you to conquer right now? Don't settle for the comfortable valley. Embody Caleb's wholehearted faith, demand your mountain, and never, ever stop pressing forward. Thanks so much for joining me today, and keep exploring.